The transport ship descended through Earth's atmosphere with practiced ease. Inside, Ambassador Vreltok of the Galactic Council adjusted his ceremonial robes for the third time. His four hands trembled slightly. This was his first mission to human space, and everything he had read in the briefing suggested this would be routine. Humans were new to the galactic stage. They had only achieved faster than light travel 15 years ago. Their technology was crude compared to the Council's 1,000-year-old systems. Their military was small and scattered across their single star system. The Council had dealt with hundreds of species like this before. "We will land at the Sol spaceport in 10 minutes, the pilot announced through the ship's communication system. "The humans have prepared a standard diplomatic greeting." Vreltok looked at his security chief, a massive Drellian warrior named Koth. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall with armored skin that could deflect most small arms fire. Koth had protected diplomats across 50 worlds without ever drawing his weapon. "Do you anticipate any problems?" Vreltok asked. Koth made a rumbling sound that his species used for laughter. "From humans?" "No, Ambassador. They are soft creatures, small, fragile. Their own files admit they die easily from their planet's conditions. We will be safe." The ship touched down with barely a whisper. The landing pad gleamed in the afternoon sun. Vreltok could see the human delegation waiting at a respectful distance. They wore crisp uniforms of dark blue with various insignia he did not understand. There were perhaps 20 of them standing in neat rows. The boarding ramp extended. Vreltok took a deep breath and walked down with Koth close behind. 4 more security personnel followed, each a member of different species, each chosen for their combat skills. A human stepped forward. He was not particularly tall, perhaps average for his species. His face was calm and professional. The name tag on his uniform read Captain Dae-hyun. He raised his hand in what the briefing had explained was a human gesture of respect. "Ambassador Vreltok, welcome to Earth. We are honored to host you and your delegation. I am Captain Dae-hyun. My unit will provide security during your stay." Vreltok returned the gesture awkwardly with one of his 4 hands. "Thank you, Captain. Your reputation for hospitality is well known across the Council." It was a polite lie. Nobody in the Council talked about humans much at all. Dae-hyun gestured toward a nearby building. "We have prepared quarters for you and your staff. If you will follow me, we can begin the security briefing." As they walked, Vreltok noticed the other humans. A female with short dark hair stood near a communications array. Her name tag said Hana. Another male, younger and leaner, waited by a transport vehicle. That one was Junho. A third human, muscular and watchful, surveyed the surrounding buildings constantly. Minho, according to his tag. They seemed relaxed, almost casual. Vreltok felt himself relaxing too. These were clearly not warriors. They were ceremonial guards at best. The briefing room was simple and clean. Dae-hyun pulled up holographic displays showing the facility layout, emergency procedures, and contact protocols. He spoke clearly and efficiently. Vreltok found himself impressed with the humans' professionalism, even if everything else seemed primitive. "Are there any threats we should be aware of?" Koth asked, his voice like grinding stones. Dae-hyun paused. "There is a small separatist group that opposes Earth joining the Galactic Council. They have made threats but have never acted on them. We consider the risk minimal. However, we maintain standard security protocols." "Standard for humans," Koth rumbled with amusement. Dae-hyun's expression did not change. "Yes, standard for humans." The first day passed without incident. Vreltok attended meetings with human officials. They discussed trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The humans were polite, organized, and clearly eager to make a good impression. On the second day, everything changed. Vreltok was touring a cultural center when the explosion shattered the morning calm. The building shook. Alarms began wailing. Through the windows, he could see smoke rising from the direction of the spaceport. Koth immediately moved to shield the ambassador. The other security personnel formed a protective circle. They had trained for this. "Protect the diplomat. Wait for extraction." The door burst open. Dae-hyun entered at a run, but he was not panicking. His face was focused and calm. Behind him, Hana carried a tactical display pad while speaking rapidly into a communication device. Junho and Minho flanked them, weapons now visible and ready. "Ambassador, we need to move you to a secure location." "Now." Daehyun's voice was level but firm. What is happening? Vreltok asked, his voice shaking. Armed hostile group. Approximately 20 individuals. They used stolen Vraxian plasma charges to breach the outer perimeter. We are evacuating all diplomatic personnel. Koth stepped forward. My team will handle this. You humans should take cover. Daehyun looked at the massive alien warrior. With respect, this is our facility and our responsibility. Please follow my team. We will keep you safe. Before Koth could argue, gunfire erupted somewhere close. The sharp crack of human weapons mixed with the distinctive whine of alien energy discharge. More humans appeared in the corridor, moving with surprising speed and coordination. They wore the same uniforms as Daehyun's team but carried heavier weapons. Building 2 is secure, one of them reported. Hostiles are concentrated in the main plaza. They have civilian hostages. Daehyun nodded. Get the ambassador to the bunker. Standard extraction protocol. I am taking 2nd Squad to handle the plaza. Sir, we have no shot on 16 hostiles with civilian shields, Minho said. Then we go in and make our own shots. Move. Vreltok watched in growing confusion as the humans split into teams with practiced efficiency. There were perhaps 30 of them now, and they moved through the building like they had rehearsed this 1,000 times. They communicated in short bursts of words that seemed like code. They checked corners and covered angles with movements that looked almost like a dance. Koth and the other council security personnel were herded along with the ambassador toward a reinforced bunker. Vreltok could hear the battle intensifying outside. More weapons fire, shouting in human languages, the occasional rumble of explosives. Inside the bunker, Hana set up the tactical display. It showed the entire facility from multiple angles. Camera feeds revealed the situation. The separatists had taken position in the central plaza with a dozen human civilians as shields. They wore mismatched armor and carried weapons from at least 4 different species. They looked dangerous and desperate. Then Vreltok saw Daehyun's team approach on the display. They moved in pairs, using the architecture for cover. They were not charging blindly. They were methodical, patient. They positioned themselves at multiple entry points around the plaza. All teams report ready. Minho's voice came through the communication system. Execute on my mark. Daehyun responded. 3, 2, 1, mark. What happened next took 4 minutes. Vreltok watched the entire thing on the tactical display, unable to look away. The humans moved simultaneously from 6 different positions. They used suppressing fire to control the hostiles' attention. They threw devices that made loud sounds and bright lights. In the confusion, they advanced. The separatists tried to respond, but they were already reacting to threats from multiple directions. The humans did not hesitate. They fired with precision that seemed impossible. Each shot found its target. Each movement had purpose. They communicated constantly, updating each other on threats and positions. One hostile grabbed a civilian. Junyo took the shot from 30 meters away, threading the bullet between 2 other hostages to strike the hostile's shoulder. The civilian dropped safely. Another team member pulled them to cover. Minho breached a barricade with a small explosive charge, then cleared 3 hostiles in quick succession. His movements were so fast they blurred on the camera. Daehyun led his pair through a service corridor, emerging behind the hostile command position. They neutralized 4 targets before the others even knew they were flanked. When it ended, all 16 hostiles were down. Every civilian was safe. Not a single human soldier was injured. The entire operation from breach to all clear took exactly 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Vreltok stood in the bunker, staring at the display in silence. Koth's armored face had lost all color. The other council security personnel looked equally shaken. This, Vreltok whispered, was your standard security protocol? Hana looked up from her display with a slightly confused expression. Yes, Ambassador. Standard response to hostile boarding or facility breach. Is something wrong? Vreltok opened his mouth, but no words came out. In 4 minutes, these humans had executed maneuvers that Council Special Forces would need 40 minutes to complete. And they called it standard. They called it routine. I need to contact Council Command immediately, Vreltok said, his voice barely steady. I need to report that we have seriously misunderstood these humans. Koth nodded slowly, still staring at the tactical display showing the aftermath of the human response. If these are their regular soldiers, the massive warrior said quietly, then what in the name of the stars are their special forces? Nobody had an answer. But suddenly everyone wanted to know. Theln arrived on Earth 3 days after the incident. She was a senior intelligence officer for the Galactic Council, and her species was known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds. Her silver skin reflected light in patterns that indicated her mood. Right now, those patterns showed deep concern. Captain Daehyun met her at the same spaceport where the attack had occurred. The damage had already been repaired. Humans worked fast, Theln noted. Perhaps too fast. Officer Theln, welcome to Earth. I am Captain Daehyun. I will be answering your questions about the incident. Theln studied the human carefully. He looked ordinary. Average height for his species. No visible weapons. His uniform was neat but unremarkable. This was the soldier who had led the counterattack that had shocked the Council. Captain, I have reviewed the security footage 17 times. I have questions. I will answer what I can. They sat in a conference room. Theln pulled up holographic displays showing the battle from multiple angles. She paused on a frame showing Daehyun's team entering the plaza. This maneuver here. This flanking movement through the service corridor. How long did your team train for this specific scenario? Daehyun looked at the image. We did not train for that specific scenario. We trained for principles. Room clearing, hostage rescue, close quarters combat. Then we apply those principles to whatever situation we face. Theln's skin patterns shifted to confusion. You improvised this entire operation? Yes, that is standard practice. There was that word again, standard. Theln made a note on her data pad. How long is your training period to reach this level of capability? Basic military training is 12 weeks. Then specialty training depending on assignment. For security forces like my unit, another 8 weeks of advanced tactics and protocols. Theln's 3 eyes widened. 20 weeks total? Approximately, yes. Captain, my species requires 2 full years to produce a basic soldier. The Drellian warrior caste trains from childhood. The Vraxian combat units use genetic enhancement and neural programming. How do humans create soldiers of your caliber in 20 weeks? Daehyun seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. We train hard. We practice until the movements become automatic. We study tactics and learn from past battles. Is this not how other species train their military? Not in 20 weeks, they do not. Theln leaned forward. Captain, I must ask directly. Are you using genetic modification, neural enhancement, chemical augmentation? The Council needs to know. No, none of those things. We are baseline humans. Standard physiology. I find that difficult to believe. Daehyun pressed a button on the table. A moment later, a female officer entered. Her name tag read, Lieutenant Somin. She carried a medical scanner. This is our chief medical officer. Lieutenant Somin can perform whatever scans you need to verify our biology. Somin smiled politely. I have brought our complete medical database as well. You are welcome to review our genetic profiles, physical capabilities, and training medical records. For the next 2 hours, Theln conducted thorough examinations. She scanned Daehyun. She scanned 6 other soldiers from his unit. She reviewed hundreds of medical files. Every test showed the same results. Completely normal humans. No genetic tampering. No artificial enhancement. No chemical boosters. Just natural biology pushed through training and conditioning. This makes no sense, Theln muttered, reviewing the data again. Your bone density is normal. Your muscle fiber composition is standard. Your neural processing speed is within expected ranges for your species. There is nothing special here. Should there be? Someone asked. Yes, there should be something that explains your combat effectiveness. But I find nothing. Somin glanced at Daehyun, then back to Theln. Perhaps the explanation is not biological. Perhaps it is cultural. Explain. Humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. War is part of our heritage. We have studied conflict for thousands of years. We learn from every battle. We write down lessons and teach them to the next generation. Maybe that is what you are seeing. Theln considered this. It was not a comfortable thought. A species that had refined warfare for millennia would be dangerous indeed. But surely the Council had encountered such species before. I need to interview more of your personnel. I need to understand your training methods. Over the next week, Theln spoke with dozens of humans. She visited their training facilities. She watched new recruits learning basic skills. She observed advanced units practicing complex operations. She took extensive notes. At one facility, she met Sergeant Instructor Kangman. He was training a group of new soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. Theln watched as he demonstrated techniques for disarming opponents and controlling hostile targets. How long have you been teaching combat? Theln asked during a break. 15 years. I was a combat soldier for 10 years before that. And these techniques you teach, are they standard across your military? These are the basics, yes. Every human soldier learns these foundations, then they build on them based on their specialty. Theln watched a pair of recruits practice a disarming drill. They were clumsy, still learning, but she could see the potential. In a few weeks, they would be dangerous. In a few months, they would be lethal. Sergeant, can I ask you something directly? Do humans understand how frightening you are to other species? Kangmin paused. He seemed to genuinely consider the question. No, I do not think we do. We know we are effective. We train hard. But frightening? We are just doing what needs to be done. That is what frightens us. You speak of lethal combat efficiency as if it were ordinary work. For us it is. Theln returned to her quarters each night and compiled reports for the council. Each report was more concerning than the last. The humans were not hiding anything. They were not using forbidden technology. They were simply good at warfare because they had been doing it forever. But one question haunted her. If these were regular human soldiers, what were their elite forces like? She requested permission to speak with Ambassador Kyung-soo, the senior human diplomat to the council. He agreed to meet her at the human embassy. Kyung-soo was older than most of the soldiers she had interviewed. His hair showed gray at the temples. His face carried the lines of someone who had dealt with difficult negotiations. He greeted her warmly and offered her a beverage she politely declined. Ambassador, I have spent a week studying your military. I have a question that the council needs answered. I will help if I can. The soldiers I have observed, the ones who repelled the attack, Captain Dae-hyun and his unit. They are standard security forces, correct? Yes. They are well trained but not exceptional by our standards. Theln felt her skin patterns shift to deep blue, indicating distress. Then I must ask, what are your special forces like? Kyung-soo's expression became serious. Officer Theln, I strongly recommend that the council not pursue this question. We must know. We must understand the full scope of human military capability. You have seen our regular soldiers. You have been disturbed by their effectiveness. Our special forces are to regular soldiers as regular soldiers are to civilians. They are selected from the best. They train harder. They operate in conditions that would break normal humans. They specialize in warfare that most people never see. The council needs a demonstration. We need to properly assess the threat level. Kyung-soo leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a long moment. This is a mistake, but if the council insists, I will arrange it. I want it noted in your report that I advised against this. Noted. Why do you object? Because once you see what our special forces can do, you will never look at humans the same way again. Right now, you are afraid of what you have seen. After the demonstration, you will be terrified of what you have not seen. Theln transmitted her report to the council that evening. She included Kyung-soo's warning. The council debated for 2 days. Species representatives argued about the wisdom of the request. Some wanted to avoid provocation. Others insisted they needed complete information to negotiate proper defense treaties. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The council needed to see human special forces in action. They needed to understand what humanity's true warriors could do. The demonstration was scheduled for 3 weeks later at a neutral station. The council would send observers from 40 different species. The humans would send a special forces team to perform a combat simulation. Theln received her assignment as the primary observer. She would write the final assessment that would guide council policy toward humanity for the next century. She spent those 3 weeks reviewing everything she had learned. She watched the security footage from the plaza attack dozens more times. She studied human military history. She read their tactical manuals and strategic documents. Nothing prepared her for what she was about to witness. On the transport to the neutral station, she sat next to Vreltok. The ambassador had requested to attend the demonstration. He wanted to see with his own eyes. Do you think they will try to impress us? Vreltok asked. Will they exaggerate their capabilities? Theln looked at her datapad, reviewing her notes one final time. No. I think they will simply show us what they can do. That will be impressive enough. How can you be sure? Because I have learned something about humans in the past 3 weeks. They do not boast. They do not exaggerate. They simply perform. And that is what makes them. The observation deck overlooked a massive training facility built specifically for this demonstration. The structure below contained 4 levels, dozens of rooms, and multiple environmental challenges. It was designed by Council military architects to be nearly impossible. Theln stood at the front of the observation deck with her recording equipment. Around her, representatives from 40 species murmured nervously. They had all read her reports. They all knew what regular human soldiers could do. Now they would see the elite. "Attention, please," a human voice announced over the speakers. "The demonstration will begin shortly. The scenario is a hostage rescue operation. 20 hostile targets are positioned throughout the facility. 15 civilian hostages are being held in various locations. The facility contains environmental hazards including fire, toxic gas, and structural damage. Time limit is 60 minutes. That is the average time required by Council Special Forces. Units." Vreltok leaned toward Thelon. 60 minutes seems generous. The Council tested this scenario with their best units from 12 species. The fastest completion was 54 minutes. Most took longer. 3 teams failed completely. The doors at the facility entrance opened. 12 humans entered in single file. They wore dark uniforms with minimal markings. Their faces were painted with dark colors that broke up their features. Each carried weapons and equipment that looked well used and carefully maintained. The lead human stopped and looked up at the observation deck. His name tag read Lieutenant Commander Tajin. His voice came through clearly on the speakers. "Observers, my team is ready. We will execute the scenario as briefed. No special accommodations. Standard operational procedures only." A council official spoke from the observation deck. "You may begin when ready, Commander." Tajin turned to his team. They gathered close. Theln watched as they spent exactly 90 seconds reviewing something on a datapad. They spoke in low voices, too quiet for the microphones to catch. Then they simply nodded to each other and moved to the entrance. "Clock starts now," the announcer said. The 12 humans disappeared into the facility like smoke and wind. The observation deck had cameras throughout the structure. Thelon switched between feeds, trying to follow the action. The humans had split into 3 teams of 4. They moved through the corridors with a fluid grace that seemed impossible in combat gear. They did not run. They flowed. Each person knew exactly where the others were without looking. They communicated with tiny hand gestures and occasional whispered words. One female soldier took position at a window overlooking the facility courtyard. Her name tag said Yuna. She assembled a long rifle with practiced movements that took perhaps 10 seconds. Then she settled into position and became completely still. "Overwatch in position," her voice whispered through the communications. The other teams continued moving. One team reached the first hostage location on level 2. 4 hostiles guarded a room with 3 civilians inside. The lead human, designated as Dongyun, approached the door with a small device. Breaching in 3, 2, 1. The door exploded inward with a sharp bang. The humans flowed through before the smoke cleared. 4 shots, 4 hostiles down. The civilians were extracted to a safe room within 15 seconds. The observation deck erupted in surprised chatter. Several representatives stood up to get a better view. That was too fast. That was impossibly fast. But the humans were already moving to the next objective. A second team led by a soldier named Jiwon encountered a section filled with toxic gas. Council forces would need environmental suits. The humans pulled breathing masks from their gear and simply walked through. On the other side, they found 2 wounded civilians. Jiwon knelt beside them. Her hands moved with quick efficiency, applying medical supplies while her team maintained security. Casualties stabilized. Continuing mission. She did not wait for extraction. She treated the wounded, marked their location, and moved on. The whole process took 90 seconds. Theln watched in growing disbelief. These humans were not just fast. They were coordinated in ways that seemed almost telepathic. They anticipated each other's movements. They covered angles without being told. They adapted to changing situations without breaking stride. The third team, led by a female soldier named Hyerin, encountered a locked computer system protecting a blast door. Council units would need to call for technical support. Hyerin pulled out a small device, connected it to the terminal, and had the door open in 45 seconds. "Intelligence specialist," Theln muttered. "They brought their own technical expert. Is that unusual?" Vreltok asked. Most species separate their combat units from support personnel. The humans appear to cross-train their operators in multiple specialties. On the third level, hostile forces attempted to organize a defense. 8 targets positioned themselves in a large room with good sight lines and defensive positions. It should have been a killing ground for anyone trying to enter. Yuna's voice came over the communications. I have eyes on 8 hostiles, 3rd level main hall. Taking shots. From her position 400 meters away through a window across an open courtyard, Yuna began firing. The first hostile dropped, then the second. The others scrambled for cover, confused about where the shots were coming from. While they were distracted, Taijin's team entered from 2 different doors. They moved like a choreographed dance. One would fire while others advanced. They used the hostiles' confusion against them. Within 30 seconds, all 8 targets were eliminated. 3rd level secure. Moving to level 4. The observation deck was silent now. Every representative watched with complete focus. This was beyond anything they had expected. These were not soldiers. These were something else entirely. Level 4 contained the primary hostage group. 10 civilians guarded by 8 well-armed hostiles in a reinforced position. This was designed to be the hardest part of the scenario. Council teams often lost simulated hostages in this phase. The humans did not assault directly. Instead, they spent 2 minutes positioning themselves. Theln watched as they placed small charges on walls and ceilings. They identified sight lines and cover positions. They communicated in short bursts of coded language. Then Taijin gave a single word. Execute. 3 walls exploded simultaneously. The humans entered from 4 directions at once. Flashbang grenades detonated in sequence, disorienting the hostile forces. The humans moved through the chaos with absolute precision. One hostile grabbed a civilian. Before he could use the person as a shield, Yuna took a shot from her distant position. The bullet passed within centimeters of the civilian's head and struck the hostile in the shoulder. He dropped the hostage. A team member pulled the civilian to safety. Dong-hyun breached a secondary door with another explosive charge. His team cleared 3 hostiles in rapid succession. Their movements were so fast that the camera feeds could barely track them. Jiwon provided cover fire while simultaneously directing hostage evacuation. She shouted commands in a calm voice, telling the civilians exactly where to go and how to move. They obeyed instantly, responding to her absolute confidence. Hieron disabled the hostiles' communication equipment with a targeted electronic attack. The enemy could not coordinate, could not call for help, could not adapt. In 2 minutes, all 8 hostiles were neutralized. All 10 hostages were safe and being evacuated to secure positions. The humans swept the room one final time, checking every corner, every shadow. Level 4 secure. All hostages recovered. Facility is clear. The announcer's voice sounded shaky. Time: 12 minutes and 38 seconds. All objectives completed. 0 hostage casualties. 0 friendly casualties. 100% hostile elimination rate. The observation deck erupted. Not in applause, in panic. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded the demonstration be reviewed for tricks or deception. Others insisted this was impossible and the humans must have cheated somehow. Theln stood frozen, staring at her data recordings. 12 minutes. The Council's best units needed an hour. These humans did it in 12 minutes and they had not rushed. They had been methodical, careful, professional. If anything, they had been holding back. A Council military commander, a Vraxian general named Krell, stood up. His voice boomed across the observation deck. This is unacceptable. We demand an investigation. No biological entity can perform at this level without enhancement. Taijin's voice came through the speakers. He stood in the facility's main hall with his team around him. General, we can submit to any medical testing you require. We are unmodified humans. This is simply what our special forces can do. How? Krell demanded. How is this possible? Taijin looked directly at the observation deck cameras. We train harder than you think possible. We practice until perfection becomes automatic. We study warfare like it is an art form. We select only the best candidates and then push them beyond what they believe they can endure. This is not magic. This is dedication. A female operator stepped forward. Her tag read Yuna. She was the sniper who had taken impossible shots through windows and past hostages. I practice my shooting 6 days a week. Every week. For years. I know my weapon better than I know my own face. This is not talent. This is work. Kelthar was a xenobiologist. She had studied over 300 species in her 40-year career. She understood biology, evolution, and the limits of natural adaptation. What she had seen in the demonstration reports made no sense. She arrived on Earth 2 weeks after the Special Forces display. The Council had given her unlimited access and resources. Her mission was simple: figure out how humans did what they did, find the truth behind their capabilities. A young human officer met her at the landing facility. Her name tag read Lieutenant Bora. She was a science officer assigned to help with the investigation. Dr. Kelthar, welcome. I have arranged access to our training facilities, medical databases, and historical archives. Where would you like to begin? I want to see where you make your soldiers. Take me to a basic training facility. They traveled to a military base 3 hours from the capital. The base sprawled across kilometers of terrain. Kelthar could see hundreds of humans in training uniforms running, drilling, and practicing various skills. This is where new recruits begin their military journey, Bora explained. They arrive as civilians. 12 weeks later, they graduate as soldiers. Kelthar watched a group of recruits practicing combat movements. They were clumsy and slow, clearly inexperienced. These are beginners? Yes, they have been here for 2 weeks. They look weak, uncoordinated. They are. That is why we train them. Over the next 3 days, Kelthar observed the training process. She watched instructors push recruits through physical exercises that seemed designed to break them, running until exhaustion, lifting heavy objects repeatedly, crawling through mud and obstacles. The humans endured it all. Why such harsh conditions? Kelthar asked. Bora gestured to the training field. We are preparing them for combat. Combat is harsh. Better they learn their limits here where it is safe than discover them in battle where it is not. Kelthar took biological samples from recruits at different stages of training. She measured their muscle development, cardiovascular capacity, and neural responses. What she found was disturbing. The human body adapted quickly to stress. Push it hard and it grew stronger. Challenge it repeatedly and it learned faster. The recruits who arrived weak became capable soldiers in just weeks through nothing but consistent effort and recovery. Your species has remarkable adaptive capacity, Kelthar noted. Does it? We thought this was normal. It is not. Most species require much longer to develop physical capability, and they need chemical assistance or genetic programming to achieve what your recruits do naturally. Bora seemed surprised. We are just working with what our evolution gave us. Our ancestors had to be adaptable to survive. That word again, survival. Kelthar was beginning to understand that human history was key to understanding human capability. Lieutenant, I need to study your species' history. Your evolution. Can you arrange this? Of course. We have an officer who specializes in military history, Lieutenant Jinwoo. He can provide context. Jinwoo met them at the base library. He was an older officer with gray in his hair and a calm demeanor. His office was filled with books, data pads, and historical artifacts. Dr. Kelthar, Lieutenant Bora tells me you want to understand human military development. Yes. I need to know why your species is so effective at warfare. Jinwoo smiled slightly. It was not a happy expression. That is a long story. How much time do you have? As much as needed. For the next week, Kelthar studied human history with Jinwoo as her guide. What she learned horrified her. Humans had been fighting each other for their entire existence. Early humans used stones and sticks. Then they invented spears and arrows, then swords and shields, then guns and explosives, then missiles and nuclear weapons. Each generation found new ways to kill more efficiently. Your species has been at war for 10,000 years? Kelthar asked, reviewing a timeline. Longer. Those are just the wars we have written records for. Archaeological evidence suggests warfare goes back much further. But why? Why so much conflict? Jinwoo considered the question carefully. Resources, territory, religion, politics, pride. Humans have fought for many reasons. Some good, most bad. But the result is the same. We learned warfare through practice. Kelthar examined records of human conflicts. She saw patterns emerging. Humans studied their defeats. They analyzed their victories. They wrote detailed accounts of every battle. Each generation learned from the previous one and improved the methods. You treat warfare like a science, when we do. Because for most of our history, losing a war meant extinction. Our ancestors who were bad at fighting died. The ones who were good at fighting survived and taught their children. After thousands of years of this, warfare became part of our culture. Kelthar moved to biological studies next. She wanted to understand human evolution. Bora took her to meet with medical researchers who specialized in evolutionary biology. The findings were disturbing. Humans evolved on what the Council classified as a death world. Earth had predators, diseases, extreme weather, and natural disasters. Life there was dangerous in ways most species never experienced. Your planet tried to kill you, Kelthar stated flatly, reviewing geological data. The researcher, a woman named Dr. Yunji, nodded. Essentially, yes. Humans survived because we evolved to be adaptable. We can live in almost any climate. We can eat many different foods. We can recover from injuries that would kill other species. We had to develop these traits or we would have died out. What about your predatory nature? We are pursuit predators. Our ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We are not the fastest or strongest, but we can keep going long after other animals quit. That persistence is still part of us. Kelthar examined human physiology more closely. Humans had efficient cooling systems that let them operate in high heat. They had advanced visual processing that helped them track movement and identify patterns. They had hands that could manipulate tools with incredible precision. They healed quickly from wounds. But the most interesting feature was their mind. Human brains were wired for pattern recognition and threat assessment. They saw danger everywhere because their ancestors who did not see danger were eaten by predators. This made them seem paranoid to other species, but it was simply survival instinct. You are designed by evolution to be soldiers, Kelthar said during a meeting with Bora and Jinwu. We are designed to survive, Bora corrected. Being a soldier is just an application of those survival traits. Kelthar spent another week observing human culture. She attended training sessions. She interviewed soldiers from different units. She watched how humans taught combat skills to each other. One observation stood out above all others. Humans never stopped learning. Even experienced soldiers continued to train and study. They practiced their skills constantly. They reviewed past operations and looked for improvements. They were never satisfied with being good enough. She watched Lieutenant Commander Tajin's Special Forces team during a training session. These were the operators who had completed the demonstration in 12 minutes. They were practicing the same scenario again, looking for ways to do it faster and safer. You already proved you could do this mission, Kelthar said to Tajin. Why practice it again? Because perfect execution once is luck. Perfect execution every time is skill. We train until we cannot fail. But you are already the best. Tajin looked at her with serious eyes. Today we are the best. Tomorrow someone might be better. Or the mission might be harder. We train because the enemy trains. We improve because standing still means falling behind. This is how we stay alive. Kelthar finally understood. Human military capability was not about biology alone. It was not about culture alone. It was the combination of evolutionary pressure, cultural emphasis on warfare, and personal dedication to constant improvement. Humans were persistence predators who had spent 10,000 years refining the art of organized violence. Their bodies were built to endure. Their minds were wired to analyze threats. Their culture celebrated martial excellence. And individually they pushed themselves to extremes that other species could not comprehend. She compiled her findings into a comprehensive report. It took 3 days to write because there was so much data to include. When she finished, she sent it to the council with a personal message. The humans are not enhanced. They are not using forbidden technology. They are simply the product of their evolution and history. Their planet made them tough. Their history made them skilled. Their culture made them dedicated. Together, these factors create warriors that exceed our capabilities by natural means. The special forces are not different from regular humans in kind. They are different in degree. They are humans who decided to take their natural gifts and push them to absolute limits through training that most species would consider torture. My recommendation is that the Council accept humanity as a military power without peer among natural species. Attempting to match their capabilities through our own training would require changing our entire cultural approach to warfare. It would require generations of effort. The humans are not our enemy, but they should never be our enemy. Because if they were, I do not believe we could defeat them. The Galactic Council chamber held representatives from 214 species. Today every seat was filled. The gallery overflowed with observers. Everyone had come to hear Kelthar's report and decide humanity's fate. The debate had been raging for 3 hours. Some species wanted humans restricted to their home system. Others demanded inspections and monitoring. A few aggressive species saw humanity as a challenge that needed to be eliminated before they grew stronger. Ambassador Kyung-soo sat in the human delegation section with his staff. He had tried to speak several times, but the council kept refusing him the floor. They wanted to debate among themselves first. Finally, the council speaker called for order. She was a Telvan elder named Sareth, and her species was known for diplomatic wisdom. She raised one of her 6 arms for silence. We have heard many proposals. Some want to contain humanity. Others want to study them further. Some even suggest preemptive action. Ambassador Kyung-soo, you have been patient. Now we will hear from humanity directly. Kyung-soo stood and walked to the central platform. Every eye in the chamber focused on him. He felt the weight of fear and suspicion pressing down from all sides. Members of the council, I understand your concern. You have seen what our soldiers can do. You have learned about our history and evolution. You are frightened. That is reasonable, but I ask you to consider something important. We are not your enemy. We never wanted to be. A Vraxian general stood up. You say this now, but your species has warfare in its blood. How long before you turn that capability against us? We have been capable of terrible violence for our entire history. We have weapons that could destroy our own planet, yet we have not used them. We established laws. We created international agreements. We learned to control our worst impulses because we understood the alternative was extinction. We police ourselves because we know what we are. Pretty words, another representative called out. But words are cheap. What guarantee can you offer? Kyung-soo paused. He had prepared for this moment. He had discussed it with human military leadership and the diplomatic corps. What he was about to propose would change everything. We offer you something unprecedented. We offer to teach you, share our training methods with council military forces. Let us show you how we prepare our soldiers. Learn from our experience. Not to become human, but to improve your own capabilities. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. Sareth called for order again. You would share your military secrets? Why? Because transparency builds trust. If you understand how we train and think, you will fear us less. And if you can improve your own forces, the security of the entire council improves. We all benefit. This could be a trap, someone shouted. They could be teaching us false methods while keeping their real techniques hidden. Kyung-soo shook his head. We will provide full access. Send your best soldiers. Let them train alongside ours. Watch everything. Ask any questions. We have nothing to hide. The debate continued for another hour. Finally, a vote was called. The proposal passed by a narrow margin. 12 council species would send soldiers to a human training facility. They would spend 6 months learning human methods. 3 weeks later, the first group of alien soldiers arrived at a combined forces training facility in the mountains. Colonel Mireille commanded the base. She was a stern woman with 30 years of military experience. She stood at the landing pad with her staff waiting to greet the visitors. The aliens climbed out of their transport ships looking nervous. There were 12 of them, each representing a different species. Some were large and armored. Others were small and quick. All of them were supposedly the best their species had to offer. Welcome to Forward Training Base Phoenix, Colonel Mireille said through translation devices. For the next 6 months you will train alongside human soldiers. We will teach you our methods. You will learn our tactics. And if you work hard, you will leave here better than you arrived. She introduced her training staff. Sergeant Instructor Siak was the lead cadre. He looked like he had been carved from stone. His face showed no emotion. Beside him stood his assistants, Instructor Nari and Instructor Chang Min. Both looked equally serious. Sir, may I ask a question? One of the aliens asked. His name was Vreltok. He was the same ambassador who had witnessed the first incident on Earth. Speak. You said we will train alongside human soldiers. Does this mean your own people go through this training? Every human soldier goes through basic training similar to what you will experience. We have adapted the program for your different physiologies, but the principles remain the same. And if we cannot keep up, Selk stepped forward. Then you will fall behind. We will not stop the training for anyone. You will push through or you will fail. That is the first lesson. The mission does not wait for you to be ready. The first week was humbling for the alien soldiers. They were put through physical conditioning that pushed their bodies to limits they had never experienced. Running, lifting, climbing, swimming. The human instructors demonstrated each exercise first, making it look easy. Then the aliens attempted it and discovered how hard it truly was. One alien, a four-legged Krenth named Paltek, collapsed during a distance run. The human medic, a woman named Specialist Jisoo, immediately attended to him. "I cannot continue," Paltek gasped. "My species is not built for this endurance." "Your species is built for short sprints and powerful attacks, correct?" Jisoo asked. "Yes. We are ambush predators." "Then we will work with that. We will build your endurance in shorter intervals. You will not run like a human, but you will run better than any Krenth before you. Trust the process." The alien soldiers began to understand. The human instructors were not trying to turn them into humans. They were trying to make them the best version of themselves. Each species had different strengths. The training adapted to those strengths while addressing weaknesses. Instructor Nari worked with a flying species called the Pelth. They struggled with ground combat because they were designed for aerial fighting. Nari taught them how to use their flight as a tactical advantage in three-dimensional combat, how to provide overwatch, how to attack from unexpected angles. Instructor Changmin trained a heavily armored species called the Grunt. They were slow but nearly indestructible. He taught them how to use their durability as a weapon, how to draw fire so others could advance, how to hold positions that would break other soldiers. Sergeant Siak handled the mental conditioning. He put the aliens through stress scenarios designed to test their decision-making under pressure. Simulated ambushes, hostage situations, equipment failures. Each scenario pushed them to think fast and adapt. "Why do you make training so difficult?" A young Drellian soldier named Korth asked after a particularly brutal exercise. "Because combat is difficult. If training is easy and comfortable, you learn nothing useful. We stress you here so you can handle stress out there. Better to discover your limits in training than in battle. But we keep failing these scenarios." "Yes. And each time you fail, you learn something. Failure is a teacher if you pay attention." The humans who become special forces fail hundreds of times in training. That is why they succeed in real operations. By the end of the first month, the alien soldiers were changing. Not physically, though they were stronger. Mentally, they were starting to think like soldiers rather than warriors. Understanding that combat was about more than strength or courage. It was about planning, preparation, and persistent execution. Vreltok had the biggest transformation. He had arrived as an observer but had asked to join the training. At 50 years old, he was ancient by military standards, but he worked harder than soldiers half his age. "Ambassador, why do you push yourself so hard?" Colonel Mirai asked him during a break. "Because I saw what humans could do and I felt helpless. I commanded embassy security for 20 years, but I realized I knew nothing about real combat. I'm too old to become a warrior, but I can learn to be a better leader. You are doing well. I'm doing terrible, but I am doing less terrible each day. That is progress." The training continued through winter. The alien soldiers learned small unit tactics. They practiced marksmanship with various weapons. They studied military history and learned from human mistakes and victories. They trained in different environments, from desert to Arctic conditions. Month 4 brought combined exercises. Alien and human soldiers worked together on complex scenarios. The differences in species became advantages. The Pelth provided aerial reconnaissance. The Grant held defensive positions. The Krenth executed lightning-fast assaults. The humans coordinated everything and provided the steady backbone of consistent performance. Instructor Siak watched from the observation post as a mixed team executed a perfect hostage rescue. The aliens moved with confidence they had not possessed 4 months earlier. They communicated effectively despite language barriers. They adapted when the scenario changed unexpectedly. "They are learning," Instructor Nari said beside him. "They are, but the real test comes next week." The real test was a live fire exercise against a thinking opponent. Human special forces would play the enemy. The alien students would have to apply everything they had learned against opponents who knew all the tricks. 6 months had passed since the first training exchange began. The alien graduates had returned to their worlds with new skills and fresh perspectives. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Then the Kreth attacked. The Kreth swarm was an aggressive hive species from the outer regions. They had terrorized frontier worlds for decades. The Council had tried diplomacy, sanctions, and limited military responses. Nothing worked. The Kreth only understood strength, and they believed they were stronger than everyone else. Station Harmony was a Council colony world with a population of 50,000. It sat on the edge of Kreth territory, a symbol of Council presence in disputed space. When the Kreth fleet arrived without warning, the station defenders had minutes to prepare. Lieutenant Hansel commanded the human contingent on the station. His team was there for joint training exercises with Council forces. They were supposed to be running drills and building cooperation. Instead, they found themselves in a real fight. The first Kreth dropships hit the outer sectors. Thousands of warriors poured out, armed with biological weapons and surrounded by swarms of attack drones. They moved like insects, coordinated by hive intelligence that made them fight as one organism. All stations, this is Station Command. We are under attack. Kreth forces landing in sectors 4, 7, and 9. All military personnel report to defensive positions immediately. Hansel gathered his team in the human quarters. There were 20 of them, a mix of regular infantry and special operations personnel. Among them was Sergeant Instructor Siok, who had been overseeing the training program. Also present was Communications Specialist Jisoo and Combat Controller Yunho. "Sir, what are our orders?" Corporal Mina asked. "We defend this station. Link up with Council forces and hold the line. Standard defensive operations. Nobody dies today if I can help it." In another section of the station, the alien graduates from the training program were assembling. Vreltok took charge of organizing them. He had officially joined Council military service after completing human training. Now he would test everything he had learned. "Students, we trained for this. Remember your lessons. Stay calm, work together. We can hold until reinforcements arrive." Among the graduates was Paltek the Krenth, who had struggled so much with endurance training. Beside him stood a Grant heavy weapons specialist named Thrak and the Pelth flyer Silith. All of them looked nervous but determined. The Kreth hit the defensive lines like a wave of teeth and claws. They attacked with overwhelming numbers, expecting the defenders to break and run. That was how it usually went. Council forces were trained for peacekeeping, not total war. They folded under sustained Kreth aggression, but these defenders were different. Lieutenant Hansel coordinated the human positions with practiced efficiency. "Yunho, I need fire control on Sector 4. Jisoo, establish communication links with all Council units. We need coordinated fire or they will divide us and destroy us piecemeal." "Copy that. Linking networks now." The human soldiers established firing positions and began engaging Kreth warriors with disciplined volleys. They did not panic. They did not waste ammunition. Each shot was aimed and controlled. The Kreth advance slowed as warriors fell in coordinated patterns. Vreltok's group held Sector 7. The alien graduates put human training to immediate use. Threk the Grunt anchored the center of their line, his heavy armor absorbing attacks that would kill others. Silith provided aerial reconnaissance, calling out Kreth movements from above. Paltek led quick counterattacks against Kreth trying to flank their position. "They are coming from the maintenance tunnels," Silith called from above. 20 warriors moving to your left side. Paltek, take your team and seal those tunnels, Vreltok ordered. "Do not engage unless necessary. Slow them down and fall back to the main line." "Understood." Paltek and his assault team raced to the tunnels. They placed explosive charges at key junctions and fell back, waiting. When the Kreth emerged, the charges detonated, collapsing the passages. 20 enemies trapped and neutralized without firing a shot. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Kreth kept coming, wave after wave. They adapted to defensive positions and found new approaches. The defenders held, but barely. Casualties mounted on both sides. Then the real crisis hit. A Kreth assault carrier broke through the orbital defenses and landed directly on the station's central plaza. It disgorged 500 warriors and 3 command beasts. The massive creatures stood 4 meters tall with armor plating and neural whips that could control nearby Kreth warriors with terrifying efficiency. "All units, this is Station Command. Enemy heavy forces in the central plaza. We cannot hold them. Recommend full evacuation." Hansel looked at his tactical display. If the Kreth held the central plaza, they controlled access to the evacuation shuttles. Everyone on the station would be trapped. They had to take it back. "Jisoo, get me a line to whoever is in charge of this defense." "Connected, sir." "This is Lieutenant Hansel, Human Forces. We can retake the plaza, but we need support. Who has the best trained units available?" "This is Ambassador Vreltok. I have 12 graduates from human training. We can support your operation. Good. Rendezvous at Junction 12 in 10 minutes. We are going hunting. While Hansel organized the counterattack, a message arrived from orbit. Lieutenant Commander Taejin's Special Warfare Unit had been conducting advanced training 3 systems away. They had received the distress call and were inbound at maximum speed. Station Harmony, this is Taejin. Hold for 18 minutes. We are coming, 18 minutes. Hansel knew they might not have 18 minutes. The Kreth were preparing to push from the plaza into the residential sectors. If they reached the civilians, the casualties would be catastrophic. We move now. Cannot wait for reinforcements. Hansel's team linked up with Vreltok's graduates at the junction point. Together they were 32 soldiers facing 500 Kreth and 3 command beasts in an open plaza with limited cover. The tactical situation was terrible. We cannot win a direct fight, Vreltok said, studying the tactical feed. No, so we do not fight directly. We fight smart. Sergeant Siak, you trained these soldiers. What are they capable of? Siak studied the mixed group of humans and aliens. They are capable of what needs to be done. Sir, I recommend we use their species advantages. Let the Pelth draw attention from above. The Grant holds the line. The Krenth hits flanks. Humans provide precision fire and coordination. Do it. The combined force moved into position around the plaza. This was nothing like the training scenarios. This was real. The enemy was deadly. Mistakes would mean death. But they moved with confidence earned through months of training together. Silith and 2 other Pelth launched into the air, making themselves obvious targets. The Kreth swarms rose to meet them, pulling defensive attention upward. While the enemy looked up, Hansel's marksmen opened fire from concealed positions, dropping Kreth warriors with precise headshots. One command beast roared and directed warriors toward the human positions. Thrak and his Grant team stepped into the open, their heavy armor absorbing the initial assault. They held like a living wall while other forces maneuvered. Paltek led his Krenth assault team in a lightning-fast strike against the Kreth left flank. They moved faster than the hive intelligence could react, cutting down warriors and disappearing before reinforcements arrived. Hit and vanish, classic harassment tactics. The Kreth command beasts were the key. As long as they lived, they coordinated the swarm. Take them down and the warriors would lose cohesion. Combat Controller Yunho identified firing solutions and directed concentrated fire. All units focus fire on Command Beast Alpha. Full automatic 3-second burst on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. 30 weapons fired simultaneously. The Command Beast staggered under the concentrated attack. It roared in pain but did not fall. Its armor was too thick. Krenth assault team, can you get close enough for explosives? Hansel asked. We can try, Paltek responded. His team circled behind the beast while it was distracted by incoming fire. They planted shaped charges on its legs and sprinted away. The explosion severed one leg. The beast collapsed, crushing 24 Kreth warriors beneath its bulk. The remaining 2 command beasts became more aggressive. They charged the defensive positions directly, using their mass as a weapon. Grunt soldiers braced for impact. The collision was tremendous. Thrak took a neural whip strike that would have killed most species. His armor held, but barely. Beast is in melee range, Siak called. Hit it with everything. The mixed force swarmed the command beast from all sides. They climbed on it, placed explosives, fired weapons point blank into joints and vulnerable spots. The beast thrashed wildly, killing several Kreth warriors in its death throes before finally collapsing. The 3rd command beast retreated toward its carrier, calling warriors to defend it. This was the dangerous moment. A cornered predator was most deadly, but it was also vulnerable. This is Taejin. We are here. The Human Special Forces unit descended from orbit in drop pods. 12 operators in powered armor hit the plaza like hammers. Unit took position and began eliminating Kreth warriors with her long rifle. Dongyun breached the assault carrier with explosives. Shiwan provided medical support while maintaining offensive fire.